Hi everyone, I'm Kate. Today we're going to learn something special. I'm just wondering, have you guys really considered how we learn something? Do we learn something by trying, or repeating, or just watching? It might sound a little bit crazy or weird to think about it. Maybe you even weren't aware of this question before, but today we're actually going to explore it. In the next couple of minutes, we're going to learn about social learning theory, which was proposed by Albert Bandura. Before going into this topic, we need to know some background information. John Dollar and Neil Miller had established the field of social learning in the 1930s. So Albert Bandura wasn't the first one who focused on social learning, but he was the one who established social learning as a theory on its own, shifting the focus of social learning theory away from traditional behavior perspective, the behaviorism. He focused on how cognitive factors are involved in learning. So, social learning theory is often described as a bridge between traditional learning theory and cognitive approach. From this diagram, we can see that social learning theory is the middle part. Social learning theory, as the name suggests, is the theory of learning and social behavior. It states that learning is a cognitive process taking place in a social context and can occur purely through observation and direct instruction, even in the absence of direct reinforcement. Briefly, the idea of social learning theory contains 3 points. People could learn by watching what others do. Learning is a self-directed and internal process. People will imitate behaviors that help achieve desired outcomes. So what's the meaning of help achieve desired outcomes? We just assume that we named a girl Kate. You see, Kate has been rewarded because she gave her Tim Tam biscuits to her sister. You will copy Kate's behavior and give your Tim Tam biscuits to your brother because you want to get the reward too. The reward is your desired outcome. Whenever we mention social learning theory, we'll talk about the Bobo dough experiment. It's a famous study conducted by Albert Bandura in 1961. The reason why it's called Bobo dough was because the tool in the experiment was the toy Bobo dough. It's a kind of inflatable doll. The aim of this study was to investigate children who aged between 3 to 5 years to see if their social behaviors, such as aggression, can be acquired by observation and imitation. At the first stage of this Bobo dough study, there were 2 versions. The first version, the aggressive one, was that the adult would punch the Bobo dough. The model would kick it, hold it down on the floor, and hit it with a hammer and things like that. The adult, the model, was very aggressive. The second one showed another adult who just sat inside the room and played with ticker toys. Then what Albert Bandura was going to do was that he let a group of children watch the scene of adult who was beating and kicking the Bobo dough, which was the version 1. The other group of children would watch the non-aggressive version, which was the version 2. Later, he brought these children into a room with many toys, including a Bobo doll, and observed children's reaction to the Bobo doll. He found that the children who watched the adults' aggressive behaviors engaged in more aggressive actions. They would run to the Bobo doll and punch it, kick it, hold it down on the floor, doing all the things that they saw what the adults did. They just imitated the adults' behaviors. In comparison, the other group of children who saw the non-aggressive version didn't show these aggressive behaviors. While this result was historic, it showed that children could learn just through watching what other people did. After this first experiment, Bandura and other psychologists also conducted a few different experiments using the same principle as the first one. One of them was about video recordings. What Bandura did was he filmed adults who beat up the Bobo doll. Then he observed children's reflections and behaviors after watching the video recordings. He took these children into a playroom with other children. Please notice that there are different toys in the playroom, including normal toys and aggressive ones like Bobo dolls and dart guns. And the finding was amazing. The children who had watched the violent recordings were much more violent in playing, comparing with other children who didn't watch the recordings. The same thing happened when children were shown a female model who dressed in an unrealistic cartoon cat and acted violently. According to this second Bobo doll study, which was conducted by Albert Bandura, Dorothea Rose, and Sheila Rose in 1953, children who watched film violence were twice as likely to engage in aggressive actions compared with children who didn't be exposed to non-aggression. Thus, the observation in this study proved that children did imitate aggressive behaviors on media. Finally, we need to evaluate social learning theory. We know that this theory is significant, right? But does this theory have any flaw? Is the Bobo doll experiment perfect? What can be done to improve the society or specific problems since we've known this theory? Let's go through them step by step. Let's talk about the theory and experiment firstly. Bandura broke through the traditional behavior theories and developed this social learning theory. Although it can explain some complex behaviors, it still can't explain how we develop a whole range of behaviors, including thoughts and feelings. Bobo doll experiments might cause desampling bias as well. All of the children who took part in this experiment came from the Stanford University nursery, which could only be afforded by rich families at that time. Also, these children had the same ethnicity. Since these children came from the same class and had the same ethnicity, they might not represent the majority. Now, let's move on to the applications. Social learning theory had been used to explain deviant behavior in the field of criminology. Generally, criminologists Robert Burgess and Ronald Akers were the first to dig deeper into the applications of social learning theory in criminology. They combined the earlier social learning theory with Edwin Sutherland's theory and developed differential association reinforcement theory of criminal behavior. As Akers describes, social learning is complementary to other sociological theories and could be used to integrate aspects of criminology. Specifically, social learning theory could be applied among juvenile criminals. Psychologists try to provide a role model for these children, hoping them to copy more positive behaviors. So, as you see that the criminal problem is a real-world application of social learning theory. Another application is the media violence, as we know that the principle of social learning theory did apply to the study of media violence. Many researchers have stated the close correlations between viewing aggressive television and aggression in real life. Mark Calland argues that, being exposed to media violence, children are more likely to form aggressive thoughts and do engage in aggressive behaviors. According to the article, The Influence of Media Violence on Youth, Professor Craig Anderson states that Even if children are exposed to media violence in the late adolescence, they will still have very aggressive behaviors in adulthood. Moreover, in the education field, teachers and parents might be suggested to change some of their behaviors according to social learning theory. Because students or kids might just imitate teachers' and parents' behaviors. Teachers and parents must model appropriate behaviors and take care if they don't model the proper ones. Okay, that's the end. Thank you for watching.